Did you know that on July 1st, 2024, Panama and the United States of America signed a Memo of Understanding, MOU, to remove foreign nationals who do not have a legal basis to remain in Panama? How did these two countries get here when the country of Panama is 3,015 miles away from the Mexican-U.S. border and has 7 countries in between them? This begs to question, is Panama the new gateway or gatekeeper for the U.S.A. when it comes to migration and immigration? In this first video of this series, we're diving into what's happening with migrants here in Panama, border issues, the new agreement between the U.S.A. and Panama to send migrants back to their home countries, how many Americans live overseas, and how this comment where a viewer asked about Venezuelan migrants inspired this video and in turn a video series. Spoiler alert, things are getting complicated.
This video series was not created to be a forum for bashing migrants, their countries, or a place for political banter. It was created to bring an awareness to a complicated global situation which affects more than just the U.S.A.
Panama is a Central American country located between Costa Rica and Colombia. It bridges North and South America through a treacherous span of jungle known as the Darien Gap, which we'll discuss in greater detail later on. While Panama is the bridge of the Americas, it's also at the helm of international trade due to the Panama Canal, which had a revenue of around $4.96 billion in 2023. It is known for its natural beauty and biodiversity. It's continuously ranked as one of the most popular expat and retirement destinations, but it has been dealing with a humanitarian crisis simply due to its geographical location. So, who is willing to risk it all to traverse this inhospitable stretch of land in the Darien Gap? Well, in the year 2022, approximately 248,284 migrants passed through the Darien Gap, a record 520,085 migrants in 2023, and over 259,000 migrants between January and September 25th in 2024. I've seen varying figures for this total amount of migrants, but these should give you an idea. So where are these migrants coming from? According to the Panamanian government, the majority of migrants were from Venezuela, followed by Ecuador and Haiti, but some came from China, India, Angola, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, and about 1/5 of them were children. So why are so many people leaving their home countries for the American dream? Some left after a massive earthquake left extreme destruction in their home country and fled to South America, where they were faced with discrimination and economic difficulties, leading to the decision to try for a better life in the U.S.A. Others watched the humanitarian situation in their home country continue to decline from dictators. Everyone's situation is different, and so are their reasons. The irony of those risking their lives for the American dream is that there's a growing number of Americans who are leaving the United States for a better life as well. Like so many Americans in the USA, I'm a descendant of immigrants. Most Americans are at some point in time, right? Well, those who chose to go. I'm a descendant of 4 people who chose to move to the USA, but I chose to leave the quote-unquote American dream and immigrate to Panama in 2022. So how many other Americans chose this path as well? There are mixed figures for this total, but let's look into 2 sources. According to the American citizens living abroad, in 2022, approximately 3.9 U.S. civilians lived overseas. This figure does not include service members or government officials, which is an additional 1.2 million. According to the website World Population Review, in 2024, there are approximately 8 million expats living overseas. With Mexico being the last border to the south, I was curious to see how many Americans lived in Mexico. Approximately 1.5 million people from the USA live in Mexico right across that border. You know, that border with the wall. A lot of them are border hopping, some are there illegally, and several have residency. But since we're discussing Panama, how many American citizens live in Panama? Well, according to this site, it's around 9,445 out of the country's almost 4 million inhabitants. The reason why I'm sharing these figures is to show that there are also people wanting to leave the USA. So here's a video explaining why I never want to live in the USA again. Panama has become a significant transit country for migrants, particularly those traveling through the treacherous Darien Gap. The Darien Gap, which has a reputation as one of the most inhospitable regions in the world, is a dense and, in essence, a lawless stretch of jungle between Panama and Colombia. People brave this menacing path in hopes of reaching North America, facing threats from wildlife, rough terrain, sickness, injury, death. rape, theft, and even encounters with some gangs. So, one glaring question is, how are migrants getting to the Darien Gap in the first place? I found this article written by the Council of Foreign Relations, which I've linked in the description below. It explains the migrant crossing. It states that once migrants arrive in Necocoli, Colombia, they take a ferry across the Gulf to two towns right outside the Darien jungle. From there, asylum seekers and other migrants can be taken by local quote-unquote guides, also known as human smugglers, who are profiting from this migration. The routes that they take can change during who is regulating passage through the Darien Gap. These routes have varying fees, which means that migrants with little money are forced to take longer and more dangerous paths. Oftentimes, these fees are in the range of a couple $100 US. For those who have more resources, they usually take shorter and safer routes that can range between $1,000 and $2,000 U.S.A. per person. Primarily, the land-based routes are the least expensive and can take between 4 and 10 days on average. This route is physically and emotionally taxing, requiring those crossing to hike up and down mountains, cross rivers, in a rugged terrain. There is no cell phone signal in the jungles, so migrants must rely on one another and for those who pay the guides. There are also 2 routes by water, which are more expensive and are used less frequently. These routes move migrants into Panamanian territory via the sea before docking, but they still have to cross on foot through a shorter part of the jungle. What dangers are they facing? Imagine initially entering the jungle with at least a tent, maybe a tarp, rain boots, basic food, and water. But as time goes on, you get tired and these things get heavier. You're forced to leave some behind in order to keep going. People can run out of water in 1 or 2 days, forcing them to use non-potable water from rivers, which can lead to people getting sick and dehydrated. Due to the unforgiving terrain, many people end up with dislocated joints and break bones while hiking. Some drown from strong currents and flash flooding in the rivers that they have to cross. The danger in the Darien does not just come from nature, it also comes from other humans. Criminals who operate in the jungle threaten and rob migrants. Doctors Without Borders has reported treating victims of sexual violence, including cases of rape and sexual abuse committed during robberies. So what happens once they exit the other side of the jungle in Panama? Since most migrants do not want to stay in Panama and view Panama as a stepping stone to the U.S.A. or Canada, why is the U.S.A.'s migrant issue and humanitarian crisis in Panama? Well, the country of Panama has limited resources to handle the influx of people. The Panamanian government has set up temporary camps, but these facilities are overcrowded and healthcare and food and sanitation are all stretched thin. Panama's role in this crisis isn't just a logistical one, it's humanitarian. If a migrant is cleared to move on to the next stretch of the journey, they are bused to Costa Rica. I've seen reporting where in 2023, Panamanian's National Immigration Service stated that one day there were 30 buses carrying almost 1,600 migrants from Panama to a Costa Rican migrant center. This brings us to the Memo of Understanding, MOU, between the U.S.A. and Panama. These 2 countries reached a deal where the U.S. will help Panama send migrants back to their countries of origin. This is a significant shift, but now, with U.S. assistance, Panama will be responsible for deporting migrants. This agreement aims to curb the flow of undocumented migrants into the United States. The idea is to provide safer and more controlled repatriation options for those who don't meet asylum criteria. Let's hear from the president of Panama, Jose Raul Molino, during an interview on Quest Means Business. The link to the video is in the description below.
As I have said several times in my country, the new border of the United States is in Darien, in Panama, not only in Texas.
Okay, that's powerful. Figuratively, he's saying the border can be more than a literal one, like the ones with Canada and Mexico. Let me know in the comments below if you agree.
I don't know who's going to win here. I will work with whoever wins. But anyway, that person should take a look very closely to what is happening in our border with Colombia. It's an extreme humanitarian crisis. In addition to all the immigration problem, it's an extreme and very sad humanitarian crisis that we are facing day by day.
So that's interesting to hear how different world leaders discuss immigration and migration and the words that they choose to use. Some choose to use words that are hateful and divisive, and others are choosing to use words that are more compassionate. Let's listen to what President Molino has to say about the agreement with the United States and its progress with Homeland Security.
And with the cooperation of the U.S. Homeland Security Office, we are repatriating. We have already 11 flights repatriating people to Ecuador, to Colombia, to India, and suddenly we will have a repatriation flight to China.
So he stated at the time of this recording that they've already had 11 flights sending migrants back to places like Colombia, Ecuador, India, and soon to be China. So let's listen to what he says he wants from the USA for the country of Panama.
The necessary support to help Panama to finish that crisis. It's not our fault. We are not promoting that crisis. What I want to have is more attention to resolve that crisis with the necessary economical resources to help Panama to provide a happy ending to all of this, because it's too complicated for our country, for our economy, to pay more or less $100 million per year to try to solve this problem.
Wow, $100 million per year. This is truly a complex situation that cannot be solved by just one country, and the blame can't always be so easily placed on the countries that people are fleeing from. So what are some Panamanian sentiments towards some immigrants, and more specifically Venezuelans, that are here in Panama? And the question of concern from one of my viewers. I cannot speak for all of Panama, but I have not seen any migrant caravans in my travels throughout Panama or living here. As previously stated, Panama buses several of them to Costa Rica. This influx of migrants and certain immigrants from Venezuela has stirred mixed feelings among Panamanians. Some are compassionate, recognizing the dire circumstances. Others, however, worry about the strain on resources and job competition, and some have taken a xenophobic attitude towards them. To be honest, it feels like the sentiments some Houstonians had with the people who came from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. But let's think about it. As Americans, we have the option to just up and move to another state that has more stability or better options. What would happen if the entire country was unstable? Where would Americans go? Just some food for thought. So what does this all mean for Panama? The impacts of migration are multifaceted. On one hand, some of the migrants and immigrants contribute to the economy by filling essential labor gaps. On the other hand, the sudden population surge puts pressure on public services and competition in certain job markets. Local communities are definitely feeling the strain, and the government is grappling with how to balance humanitarian needs with national stability. In the grand scheme, Panama is more than just a transit point. It's becoming a focal point in the larger migration and immigration narrative. With the new MOU in place, Panama and the United States are setting precedents on how to handle this complex issue. It's a partnership that could influence migration policies across the Americas and maybe even the world. Only time will tell. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world. Until the next installment of this series, stay informed. The world is yours. You just have to find your place in it.